Good evening, one and all. Welcome you all for the second session of the 2 weeks faculty development program on research revenues in biometrics using low-cost devices. A good start had happened yesterday with all the basics by Dr. Surya Prakash sir. And in the second session yesterday, sir spoke about the year as the trait in the biometric. Today we have eminent speaker Dr. H.S. Nagendraswamy sir, who is currently working as professor in the Department of Studies in Computer Science, University of Mysore. Sir, we wholeheartedly congratulate you as you have taken charge as chairman in the Department of Computer Science in University of Mysore very recently.
Thank you,
Sir
madam.
has obtained his BSc, MSc and doctoral degree in computer science from University of Mysore and has got more than 30 years of teaching experience by now. Sir has presented his research findings in China, Russia and Malaysia, and he is invited for a talk at various national and international conferences and workshops. Sir has successfully guided one student towards MSc Technology by Research and 5 students towards doctoral degree, and currently is guiding more than 8 students towards doctoral degree. Sir has published more than 60 articles in reputed peer-reviewed international journals, including Pattern Recognition Letters, Neurocomputing, International Journal of Image and Graphics, International Journal of Machine Intelligence and Engineering Letters, international conferences, including Asian Conference on Pattern Recognition, Journal of Intelligent Systems, and so on. Sir has also co-authored a book on C++ and prepared several study materials for various subjects for distance education program of KSOU and University of Mysore. Sir is serving as a reviewer for various international journals, very importantly including Pattern Recognition Letters, IJMI, ICVGIP, and editorial board member of national and international conferences. There is a big list of such research findings. Sir heading the chair of various bodies, both in administrative and academic activities in and around Karnataka and abroad, and being nominated as academic council member for JSS Women's College, Saswatipuram from university, and so on. Sir, we are very pleased to welcome you for the second session of the FDP. The session is yours, sir. Please.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Thank you very much, Bharti madam, for having introduced me to the audience.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to say good evening to each and everyone present over here. And I formally welcome you all to this virtual session in this faculty development program, where I would like to interact with you roughly about 150 minutes from now on the topic gate recognition, review and challenges. So I will be sharing my PowerPoint presentations, and in case if there are any issues while delivering this virtual lecture, you please bring it to my notice. I request the organizers to either call me in case if there is any problems with audio or anything related to the network.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Yes. So with this, let me share my PowerPoint presentation. Is it visible to each one of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine then. Okay, so dear friends, let me start my interaction with you on the topic human gate recognition, review and challenges. So myself, already madam introduced me to each one of you. So let me straight away get into the next slide. Let's begin the session with a very meaningful quote. Every interaction is an opportunity to learn only if we are interested in improving rather than proving. So with this, let's begin our discussion. Outline of my presentation today covers introduction to biometric, very short, then gate biometric and gate recognition system, history of gate recognition, and few gate databases and gate recognition approaches, an example symbolic representation technique to gate recognition, summary and conclusions followed by references. So this is how I planned my lecture in this session. As when I was interacting with the organizer, they just mentioned that they are organizing one FDP covering the major topics on biometric applications at low cost devices. So with this objective, I just thought of sharing with you some of the important research accomplishments that have been done so far in this biometric trait, that is gate biometric. I hope that all the participants have already been introduced to this particular technique in many ways. Some of you have learned this to a certain extent, having attended some of the conferences or having referred some of the research articles or many other ways. Even yesterday also, the speaker might have already introduced an overview of biometric traits and the techniques. But today, I would like to take you all on the corridor of a specific biometric trait, that is a gate biometric. And I have included some of the important research avenues and what has already been done. I will not be going into the depth to discuss with you a very specific technique, but I try to cover some of the major and very important work that has been done and reported in the literature. So with this background, let me start with a very brief introduction to biometric. As I already mentioned, I will not be going into the depth because you might have already been introduced to this particular technique. So in brief, a biometric refers to identifying or verifying humans. There are many biometric traits, and very popularly the fingerprint, face, palm print, ear, iris, retina, DNA, many more. And of course, few of these biometric traits have already been used in our day-to-day life, like a fingerprint. And signature is also a biometric, but it belongs to a behavioral biometrics. So there are behavioral and also physiological, if I classify the biometric traits. So fingerprints, face, iris, hand, etc. will come under physiological characteristics. And signature, voice, speech, gait, etc. will come under behavioral characteristics. Both these approaches or the techniques have been very well explored in many applications, and today we are quite familiar with few of those applications. So biometric systems operate as either identification system or a verification system. So in many banking sectors, we use a biometric for a verification system, and also in forensics department, the verification system will be used. But in many cases, we use a biometric for identification. So whenever we want to grant access to a particular person to access to certain materials or some restricted area, there we can think of identifying a person. And of course, there are many other applications which I just list a few of them in our subsequent slides. So identification means one-to-many comparisons, where verification means one-to-one comparison. And some of you might have already get into the details of these two processes. Those people who have already studied little more depth the biometrics, or some of you might have already worked quite extensively on biometrics. You are quite familiar with these two processes, identification, verification. So all biometric systems normally does recognition. That means again know a person who has been previously enrolled. So the fingerprint recognition is one such example where in almost all colleges, schools and all, the employees have already been enrolled and every day they give their fingerprint for recognition and through which the attendance can be marked. Even in the class, in many advanced schools and colleges where there is a good infrastructure and they have already implemented a face biometric where the automatic attendance system can happen just by detecting the face and recognizing the face of a student who has been enrolled for a particular course. And this is how we are slowly moving to use all these technologies in our day-to-day activities. And that's how all biometric systems, whatever the traits we have just mentioned, does this recognition operation. That is, again, know a person who has been previously enrolled. So whenever we speak about a biometric trait, and if at all we want to consider a biometric qualification criteria, a candidate feature must meet the following conditions. One is the universality, means each person should have the characteristics. So for example, if we consider a fingerprint, so we expect that it is universal because each and every human being will possess that fingerprint. And of course the face, we cannot expect a person without a face. So that's how it's universal in nature. Of course, in some cases, fingerprint, maybe a few percent of the population may do not have that, but in majority of the population, it should be there. That's what is universal. And distinctiveness, any two persons should be sufficiently different in terms of the characteristics. We consider a fingerprint, face or a signature because we need to distinguish one person from another person, and that is what is the major criteria in any biometric, because we are identifying a person or we have to distinguish one person from another person. So that's how any biometric which we can think of must possess the distinctiveness. But this is what is the challenge when we consider a large population for analysis. Whether you consider a signature, or you can consider a fingerprint or a gate. So the distinctiveness is a challenge in a large population. If at all I want to set up a biometric system for an organization where there are 10,000 people, then definitely any algorithm which we design may not produce you 100% accuracy. So there will be a little bit of loss in the algorithm accuracy. So that's how the distinctiveness is still a challenge at a larger scale, which we need to address. And another is the permanence, means the characteristic should be sufficiently invariant over a period of time. So of course, this is again to a certain extent is a challenge because certain biometric traits keep on changing over a period of time, because the face of a person, which maybe after 5 years or 10 years, we can expect significant changes in the face of a person. So if a person has been enrolled 10 years back, sometimes it may not be possible for us to use the same photography while identifying or verifying that person after 10 years. And of course, a lot of work is going on in this direction, and it has a lot of potential in exploring the techniques in this direction. And in fact, in our department, one of the candidates of our supervisor, Professor D.S. Guru sir, has already worked in this direction, where they are going to study the stable age of a student or a kid going to a primary school or a high school. So of course, there is a lot of challenges there, maybe in terms of collecting the database or in terms of designing an algorithm, efficient algorithm, right? So many issues and challenges are there in such biometric applications. So a permanence is the characteristics that should be sufficiently invariant over a period of time. And then is the collectability. The characteristic can be measured quantitatively. So we have to collect. Okay, so it is very much important that whenever we consider a particular biometric, it should be measurable. So these are some of the criteria which we need to consider whenever we are considering a particular trait as a biometric trait, and which we use for authenticating a particular person in many applications today. So with this, and of course, when we think of deploying such a system in a practical scenario, some of the issues to be considered are the performance, refers to the achievable recognition accuracy and speed. For example, if we just think of an ATM, okay, let us assume that the ATM is equipped with a new technology that it recognizes a customer with a fingerprint and also a face. That's a multimodal biometric. So nowadays, most of the ATM, we just use the card, the ATM card, and then we get authenticated and then we get access to ATM. But in future, we can expect that the ATMs are upgraded, wherein a customer go to the ATMs and then give the fingerprint and the face, and that need to be verified, and the customer need to be authenticated. And this has to happen within a few seconds, not even minutes, within few seconds. And that is what the speed that is expected in real-time applications in practical. At the same time, the accuracy, right? Of course, there will be certain limitations in some cases. Maybe we can say the reliability of the system, how reliable the system is. For example, if an ATM recognizes a person with a fingerprint or a face 10 times, or if you subjected the verification for 10 times, at least out of 10 times, the system must be successful at least 9 times. So that's what the performance we expect. And also the acceptability, indicate the extent to which the people are willing to accept the use of a particular biometric identifier in their daily lives. Of course, there are many strong biometric traits like DNA, right? Even the DNA can also be considered as a biometric trait. And of course, many other such techniques can be tried, but many times the people are not willing to give, and it is not feasible as well. And even I just read in some research articles that the leaf can also be considered as a biometric, but many times the people may not willing to give or consider that as a biometric trait because of many social obligations. So acceptability is also an important issue to be considered when we are deploying a practical biometric system. And another is the circumvention, denote the easiness the system is fooled through fraudulent methods. And this is another very challenging issue in a practical biometric system, because sometimes the fingerprint can be fooled, the face can be fooled, because today the people are quite intelligent that they try to find out the way where they can crack or where they can make the system fool. So that's how the circumvention is also very important issue to be considered in a practical biometric system. So hope all these things have already been discussed, but just for the sake of continuity and completeness, I just wanted to cover these things. And of course, all these qualification criteria and also the issues can be related to a GIAT biometric. And of course, the GIAT biometric is universal distinctiveness to a certain extent. Of course, still studies need to be done at a larger scale, and also permanence and collectability. And at the same time, the performance can be achieved, acceptability can be done, and also circumvention. So definitely the GIAT biometric cannot be means fooled, right, through fraudulent methods. So that's how. Now let's consider the main topic of a GIAT biometric. So what exactly is the GIAT biometric, and how this biometric system can be used for authentication, and particularly in a surveillance applications? And at the same time, what are the advantages of GIAT biometric when compared to other biometric traits? And what is the state of art work or the progress in this particular GIAT biometric technology? So GIAT means a person's manner of walking. So all of us know this definition. We can identify a person by just observing the way he or she walks. Many times we can remember or we can recognize our friends or relatives when we observe them at a distance, because if we are able to recognize them, that means how close we are, how closely we have observed that person. So a gait means a person's manner of walking. Gait recognition means identifying individuals by the way they walk. That's what is gait recognition. So we can identify a person the way they walk. So a gait biometric features, they are different from traditional biometrics, and we will see how. And they incorporate both spatial as well as temporal components. It's unique in every person, but this need to be studied because many times we even have experienced that when we observe a person's walking at a distance, sometimes we confuse, and also there is a chance that the style of walking of one person may resembles to another person, right? At the outset it looks like that, but when you explore it through a technology, definitely there is a possibility that we can distinguish. So that's how, for just when we observe through our bare eyes, we can sometimes may not be able to distinguish, but when technology is explored for that, there is a chance that even in such scenario, there is a chance that we can distinguish and we can authenticate. And that's what the uniqueness. It can be captured at a distance. It does not need individual cooperation. This is another very interesting and advantage of a gait biometric. When it comes to fingerprint, face, iris, retina, ear, palm, and etc., so it requires a cooperation. So without the person's cooperation, candidate cooperation, we cannot proceed further. But when it comes to gait biometric, it doesn't require anybody's cooperation because it can be captured at a distance. Without bringing it into the notice of a person, we can capture. And that is what is the best part of this particular biometric, which we can think of exploring this in surveillance application. Okay, for example, if there is an area like a Reserve Bank of India or any such kind of campuses where it's highly secured, so we don't allow anybody to get inside, means the strangers. In such cases, definitely at a first level of security, we can think of deploying a biometric system where we can identify a person by capturing the features at a distance and without bringing it into the notice of the person. And that's what is, we don't need any individual cooperation. It can be used even with a low resolution. So definitely when we capture the information at a distance, the resolution will be low. But when it comes to a fingerprint, face, and other biometrics, the resolution plays a significant role. But to a certain extent, gait biometric can work at low resolution as well. But the research need to be done in this direction. To what extent this particular issue can be considered or addressed. Okay, so what should be the permitted level of resolution that we can think of to consider a gait as a biometric which can be deployed in a practical application. So it is difficult to hide, steal, or a fake. So maybe one can practice how other person can make a signature, or even the fingerprint can be fooled, or even that face can be, right? So through certain masks, but gait cannot be done like that. You cannot think of a mask for a gait, right? So that's how maybe you can practice, but even at certain places it may be difficult for you to mimic all the time. So that's how it is difficult to hide, steal, or fake. It can be used for some early warnings and for monitoring, right? Maybe verification, it is quite difficult, but for an identification, we can just definitely, as a early warnings, we can think of this gait biometric. So with these features, now let's look at this simple example, and it is taken from one of the Hollywood movies where they have just shown that a gait recognition techniques is employed to authenticate a person, and a person can be allowed to get inside or allowed to a restricted area only when he is authenticated as the user who is already permitted to enter into that particular area. That's how the gate can be used in such a scenario. And here is an example that the person is going inside a particular restricted area, and here it shows that access is denied. Okay, so this is just an example for you to understand the system. So whatever I just now mentioned, you can just look at here, right? A short distance, that's a cooperative, that's a fingerprint, iris, and also a face. And when it comes to gait, a long distance and can be uncooperative as well, right? Here you can look at here, you can recognize a person. Here there is a mask or a bounding boxes where the subject of interest is recognized in a crowd. Okay, so that's how it's, I mean, the gait can be used to identify a person at a distance, and it's uncooperative as well. So this slide will just give you the information regarding the resolution, right? As I already mentioned, the gait even works at low resolution when compared to other biometric traits like fingerprint, face, retina, and other things. So if you look at here, when you take a picture of face information of these people here, so it looks like this. Very difficult for us to recognize the person with face information, but we can recognize the people, the way they walk, right? That's how. As a biometric gait, it is still available at a distance when other biometrics are obscured or at too low resolution. Therefore, we need a gait recognition. But again, you can ask a question that how reliable it is. Is it true that we can effectively identify a person with this resolution? Of course, a lot of research need to be done. And according to my knowledge, when I go through the literature, I understand that most of the biometric work or the results, accuracy, everything is reported in a controlled environment. And I don't think, or I didn't find much of the work or a concrete work where the research community has explored a real-time scenario, even in gait biometric as well. But maybe it poses a lot of challenges and hence a lot of avenues in this direction. So let us assume that we have deployed a camera at a distance and we are recording the data quite a long distance. So with that, is it possible for us to identify a particular people or a person of interest? Okay, so definitely it's a very, very important requirement in today's scenario, right? So we can explore in the direction, but as I read the literature, most of the works are reported in a controlled environment, but there is long way to go in this direction. So hence, there's a lot of challenges, avenues, and a lot of issues. And this can be experienced only when we made an attempt in the direction. Okay, so here are some of the applications of gait recognition: suspect searching, access control, airport security, robotics, and smart home. So you can enumerate many more such applications in many domains or the sectors where we can think of deploying gait as a biometric for recognition or authentication. So with this background or a general information about a gait biometric, let's look at a gait recognition system. If at all we want to propose a practical gait recognition system for any application, what should be the architecture of such a system? What are the steps to be followed, or the major components need to be taken into account while designing such a practical biometric system? So with respect to the gait, here is one simple such architecture where we get input gait silhouette images. It need not be a silhouette images, and sometimes even you can work with a direct image information as well. So this is one such architecture where some researchers have explored the gait silhouette for recognizing a person with gait biometric, right? So in that context, you can just give input gait silhouette images, and then you can extract the gait features and gait representation. Then you're going to create a gait knowledge base. And this process is called as a training. So once the system has been trained, then the same steps are followed. So we give an input gait silhouette image. We can extract the gait feature. Then we represent it. then we perform a gate matching, and then we label. That's a gate recognition. For example, if you are deploying a typical gate recognition system for a particular institution, like SJC campus or Manasa Gangotri campus, then definitely it's not a simple task, because a lot of people will be there in the campus. So then definitely we should have a proper framework whom to identify and who are all the people who are enrolled. So maybe in a department, because the employees are every day just going to the department and they do certain activities in the department, maybe we can study the gate of each such employee in the department, and there is a CC camera, and with that camera we will be able to automatically monitor when that particular employee get inside the building, how many times he went out, what are the frequency, and many statistics can be extracted within the building. So we can start with such a simple practical system, and later we can think of the feasibility, and then we can just extend that. And a lot of issues need to be addressed when we are thinking of deploying such a system at a large scale, right? So keeping that in point, you can think of a gate recognition system which consists of two major tasks. One is the training, another is the testing, where during training we enroll each and every person to be identified or verified by using a gate feature, right? And then we create a knowledge base, and when we deploy the system in a real time, we capture the gate information of a person, and then we extract the features and we perform matching, and then we label yes, he is the person, and we authenticate, right? So that's how we can understand a typical gate recognition system. Of course, the architecture can be changed depending upon the technology you are going to use, because very recently all of us are quite familiar with a deep learning architecture, and if at all I am thinking of using a deep learning technique for a gate recognition system, maybe we can just think of changing this typical architecture to a certain extent, right? And you will see an example little later. So how does a gate recognition system work? Here is an example. In a controlled environment, you allow the user to walk, and that will be captured in a video, and we extract the silhouettes by subtracting the background and considering only the silhouette information, means the subject of interest for analysis. And then we do adopt certain technique or an approach. There are many approaches which I am going to cover few of them in our subsequent slides. Here is one such example, gate energy image. Many of you might have read it in many articles. Gate energy image is an intermediate representation, and this is an example of gate energy image, right, which has considered all the silhouettes in each and every frame, and gate energy image is produced, and the database is already created, means the system is already trained with such a gate energy image, and the system has a knowledge and what should be the gate energy image of a particular person based on his gate cycle. And with that knowledge, we do a comparison or a matching, and then we can assign a human ID, means a label to that particular person, and through which we are authenticating a particular person. So this is how a typical gate recognition system works. Whether you are using a traditional approach or a deep learning approach, it doesn't matter, but this is the basic the task or the process involved in any gate recognition system. So if at all I want to give some information regarding a history of gate recognition, right? So I just thought that this information is quite interesting, so that we should know a little bit about it, right? There is nothing like technical, but in a general sense, we need to know how this gate recognition is started, what is the history. So according to the literature, it is reported that it has started in the year 1964 itself by Murray. and he produced a standard movement pattern for pathologically normal people, suggesting the uniqueness of gait for individuals. That is, working patterns of normal man, gait as a total pattern of movement. And that's how it started. And you can see some of the points here which characterizes that such a pattern. And then in 1973, Johnson studied visual perception of motion patterns and suggested that biological motion has far higher complexity than mechanical motions and presented point light displays to simulate a human gait. And the article title is Visual Perception of Biological Motion and a Model for its Analysis. And later, that Cutting and Kozlowski in 1977 announced that humans can recognize friends of a person solely by their gait with 70 to 80% accuracy. That is, recognizing friends by their walk, that is gait perception without familiarity cues. So this is how the history of gait recognition starts. And later, the first gait biometric paper, Cunado, Nixon, and Carter, that is in 1997, they are telling a 90% of accuracy. And DARPA program, Human ID at a Distance, in the year 2000. And then learning representative deep features for image set analysis in 2015. And cross-view gait-based human identification with deep convolutional neural network, that is view invariant gait recognition in the year 2016, right? So this how, and you can find plenty of work in the literature, but I just took some information in one of the research articles. Okay, I'm just presenting here. So these work, the three which are proposed in the year 1997 to 2015, which are mentioned here, they are handcrafted features for gait recognition. They are designed with handcrafted features for a gait recognition, but this work uses a deep learning for gait recognition. So in our subsequent slides, I'm going to cover some of such deep learning work reported in the literature and the accuracy and the database which they have used, and some such general information regarding the state of the art work related to gait biometric, keeping in mind the deep learning architecture. So with this, in the next few slides, I just wanted to give you some work related to gait. So DARPA, that is a Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, that is Human ID at a Distance, right? So HID at a distance will develop multimodal biometric technologies to improve our ability to identify foreign terrorists from a distance. So a defense agency has deployed such a system, and they wanted to identify the foreign terrorist from a distance. Accordingly, this is the program which was practically made possible. So DARPA program motivated the research on gait recognition. So here are some of the gait databases released and which are widely used benchmark in the gait recognition or in the field of biometric community, particularly gait. So I'm not going to read out all these databases. Anyhow, this presentation material will be shared with you all. You can just go through this in whenever it is convenient to you. So just to name a few, so here GIAT Tech, HID, UMD, Saturn small database, large database, multimodal, temporal, and etc. And USF Human ID database, University of South Florida, and CASIA ABC, that is Chinese Academy databases. And very recently, other databases like OU, ISIR, Treadmill, ABCD, and many more as such. And they have mentioned the number of subjects and the sequences and the covariates and the viewpoints indoor and outdoor, right? So this is just some information regarding the students who are willing to work in this direction or who are already currently working on this particular topic, that is gait biometric. So many research papers have referred CASIA databases and USF Human ID and also OUISIR large population databases, and anybody is working on gait recognition field or gait recognition topic, or if anybody willing to take up the research in future on this particular topic, maybe this information is quite useful. You can explore some more details on this, and you can see whether any of these databases are publicly available for you to study and to carry out the experimentation. Of course, I remember that CASIA database is available and you can use it, and even many other databases are also publicly available and you can use those databases for study. So with this, the next few slides contain some information about the databases. I quickly cover up those details, not that technical, just for a completeness and some for general information. So this USF Humanity database is indoor and outdoor. That is an outdoor database considering 122 subjects and number of carrying conditions 2. That is a briefcase, and working conditions, shoe types, viewpoints left and right, background grass and concrete, and time instants 2. So here they have shown an example scenario, right, how this database is captured and how they have considered such a database for study. So the gate energy images of 2 subjects under different conditions are considered here as an example. The obtained GIs are more noisy and of lower quality due to complex background, and this is the very challenging issue we need to think of whenever we are proposing this particular trait in a practical application, because sometimes we may have to work in a noisy environment, and because we are capturing at a distance, definitely the images captured are at low resolution, and because the environment will not be under our control, sometimes definitely it introduces a noise. Then definitely we have to think of coming out with a very robust technique and an approach which still works in such a noisy environment. Okay, so this just an example for you to understand what are the challenges and what are the avenues, right, and what are the scope for considering this particular topic for your research. And here is an example, CASIA B database. There are many A, B, C, D, but here just I'm mentioning one such database, CASIA B database, that is indoor database consisting of 124 subjects and carrying or walking conditions 3, that is a normal walk, wearing coats and carrying bags, and the viewpoints, that is 11 viewpoints they have considered here. Okay, so here they have given 0 degree, 18 degree, 36 degree, 54 degree, 72 degree, up to 180 degree, right? So definitely when we think of deploying such a practical system in real-time scenario, so definitely we need to consider all the possibilities, because you can't always expect a subject will walk in only one particular direction or in one particular angle. So we need to capture the information in a different angle and direction, and that need to be considered in real-time scenario for analysis, and thereby we can authenticate or identify or recognize a particular subject of interest. Okay, so apart from this, the other challenges are wearing coats, carrying bags, and etc. Okay, so all such kind of scenarios need to be considered for a particular subject, because a person who has enrolled may come the next day with a coat, right, or he may carry a bag or a bottle or any such kind of objects. Whenever you analyze the gait of a person in such a scenario, then definitely it's quite different from the earlier one, right? Okay, so definitely your walking style may change with a shoe and a surface, and your walking style may change when you carry a bag, right, or a backpack or a jerkin or something like that. So how are these challenges are addressed? I will tell you, according to the literature, such issues have not yet been addressed in uncontrolled environment. Okay, so all these things have been considered only in the controlled environment, and that too in the indoor. So definitely there is a scope for you to create a database considering all such kind of conditions in a real-time environment. And what is the possibility of a deployed gait recognition technique, or already proposed gait recognition techniques, and many parameters like reliability, performance, accuracy, all such things can be studied, and definitely I will tell you there is a lot of scope to explore in the direction. So with this, There is another database. You can just look at the information here, indoor, and of course 4007 and 4016 subjects in different versions, and 1 to 94-year-old, and also working conditions, viewpoints, and background. So here are some of the examples for you to just understand this information: male, female, younger, and also you can see elder, 55 degrees, 65 degrees, 75 degree, 85 degree, right? So they have created a database with all such kind of criteria, and definitely it is very challenging to propose a technique which can produce expected level of accuracy for such a database, and that too in an uncontrolled environment. Okay, so there is a CASIA H3 database where it is a outdoor with 1000 subjects. Now you look at the scalability, right? Earlier we had only 30 subjects, 40 subjects. Now it has been extended that 1000 subjects, carrying conditions 3, working conditions 2, viewpoints 13 horizontal to vertical, and background scenarios 2, and number of sequences is more than 7,60,000 sequences they have considered. So another super large database for gait recognition proposed by Song Hyun et al. And you can just browse through or get more details about this CASIA HT database. And definitely you have a lot of challenges. I think what are all the techniques which have already been proposed in the literature may fail to produce expected level of accuracy when you work on such a huge database. And of course, definitely even this database also comes with certain constraint, but again there is a scope for you to work considering or removing that particular constraint. Okay, so it's really quite interesting and very, very challenging to work on this particular topic in this direction. So with this information regarding some of the databases which the community of research have already explored and reported the results on gait recognition systems. So with this information, now let's look at the categories of learning methods for gait recognition. So now I try to give you some technical information to certain level of detail and depth. So we can categorize the learning methods for gait recognition into two broad categories. That's a model based and model free, that is appearance based. So this model based uses the human body structure, that is a torso height. You can see here, you can consider gait of a person, and you can consider the distance, that is from head till this trunk, and length of the leg, and height of a person, and the stride means the space between the left and the right foot when he is walking, and that also is different for a different person. And many times we have observed that it all depends on the height, but it is not that all the people who have a height like 6 feet will have the same stride and leg length and torso height. That may vary, right? So maybe they are same with respect to this particular feature, that is a height, but when it comes to other parameters, they may be different. So it's very interesting and very important to know what are all such discriminative features we can consider, so that I can distinguish one person from another person considering gait as an information, right? So that's a model based. But when it comes to model free, uses the whole motion pattern of the human body. So see here the images and the profiles like a silhouette or other information, then gait energy images, and learning methods like PCA, LDA, LPP, or recognition using SVM or NN, etc. Then human ID. So this comes under model free. And when you search through the literature, you can find a lot of work already proposed by many researchers, where you can find plenty of papers which comes under category model based and also the model free. And of course, these techniques will have their own merits and limitations, again from the point of view of the parameters like accuracy, the complexity, the speed, the performance, and the cost, and the practical feasibility, right? So many such kind of parameters need to be taken into account, and we can compare the model based with the model free, and we can find out which is the best technique or the method for deployment at low cost, because many parameters need to be considered not just only the accuracy, right? So many times the system may produce a good accuracy, but not feasible when it comes to a deployment in a practical scenario, because it demands a lot of computational power, infrastructure, and is not affordable when it comes to money, right, or the cost. So that's how many parameters need to be taken into account, and thereby we can decide, or we can come to the conclusion that which model or the method can serve the purpose in practical scenario. So with this, if we consider some of the parameters for comparison. So model based uses the human body structure, whereas model free uses the whole motion pattern of the human body. So model based greater invariant properties and better at handling occlusion, noise, scale, and rotation. And also they require a high resolution and are not yet very suitable for outdoor surveillance. So that is the limitation. So you can look at here the merits as well as the limitation of a particular approach or a method. But when it comes to model free, computational efficiency and simplicity can handle raw resolution case and suitable for outdoor surveillance. So we have to decide in which application or in which environment we are going to deploy a gait recognition system. So accordingly, we can just think of model based or model free. So depending upon these parameters. And here is an example of a model based approach. So fusion of static and dynamic body information, and you can see here the movement of head and hand movements, leg movements, and the length. Okay, so the stride information. So all these dynamic, static as well as dynamic body information are considered for analysis of a gait in a model based approach. So the static body information is a form of a compact representation obtained by Procrutus shape analysis. The dynamic information is obtained by a model-based approach which tracks the subject and recover joint angle trajectories of lower limbs, and fusion at the decision level used to improve the recognition results. So this is just an example, and this paper was published in the year 2003, almost 20 years back, right? So, but we can see even today how far these techniques are reliable. Can these techniques can be thought of, right, in a practical scenario, right? So definitely there is a scope for improving such a system at a low cost, and we need to study the feasibility, and this is just an example for you to understand a model based approach. And here is another example. Look at here a gait silhouette, and we can extract some features for recognizing or identifying a gait of a person. So here is one such idea, like axis of least inertia of a silhouette, and this changes, right, depending upon the person's walking style and a manner, because it depends on how a person uses the hand movements and leg movements and other details. So with this information, the axis of least inertia, we can consider the angle of axis of least inertia across the gait cycle, and also the distance between extreme points with the centroid, and also with left and right arm movement, and even you can think of considering many more features. But in this example, the researcher has considered only 5 features, right? D1, D2, D3, D4, and then the angle, that is a theta. It's just a 5 dimension, right? Even you can think of many other features, and you can extend the dimension, and you can even think of the importance of those features at a large population, right? Because some of the features you may have to reduce, I mean you may have to eliminate, so that you can study only when you consider a large population, and you can study the importance of a particular feature, right? So that's what is called the feature reduction. So here is an example, silhouette with a different covariates. You can look at here normal walk with a backpack and with a bottle or holding some object. And this is a jerkin, I think, and this is a backpack. So definitely under these circumstances, the gait, right, the manner of walking will be definitely different. So it's very much important to address the intra-class variation and between class similarity. So that is what is the biggest challenge in a large population, right? Because sometimes when you look at the person in a normal walk, and when you observe the same person with a backpack or with a jerkin, so definitely there is a significant variation in the manner of walking. So that need to be captured, right? And that should not be overlapped with some other person. If that is the case, then you cannot uniquely identify one person from another person, right? So we need to explore at a large population how we can consider such intra-class variations, right? And also between class similarity, and that's a very important issue or a challenge need to be addressed when we think of deploying a GIAT biometric in a practical scenario with a considerable population size. And here is an example for you to make you a little more clarity, right? I just already mentioned that this is an example instance of a feature extraction of a particular biometric instance, okay, of a person. And here a bag, cloth one, normal two, normal three of a particular subject is considered. And when you measure the features like D1, D2, theta, D3, and D4, as I already mentioned, you can just think of the variations here, right? Okay, when he uses the bag as a backpack, then the measurement D1 is 41.0122. The same person with the cloth 1, 35.0143, that's D1, the measurement that is normalized. And similarly, normal 1, normal 2, normal 3 in a normal walking style. So even when you allow the person to walk in a normal scenario itself, so you can expect some changes, right? Maybe it's because of the floor or because of mood or maybe for many other reasons, okay, which we need to explore. So 37, 39 and 36. So this is how the features which are extracted for a particular person under different instances itself vary, and this is what is called intra-class variation. And even you can observe that with respect to feature D2 as well, and also theta and D3 and also D4. In one of the research work, the the researcher has proposed a symbolic representation technique, that's an interval valued feature representation, where the researchers try to capture such variation in terms of interval valued features, that is a lower limit and an upper limit. Okay, so definitely you may wonder whether this such intervals can can distinguish one population from another population or one subject from another subject. So definitely that is that is the scope where we need to explore, right? To what extent such technique which capture the intra-class variation can serve the purpose of a GIAT biometric when it comes to accuracy, when it comes to reliability, right? Or when it comes to other parameters, right? Okay, so it's definitely there is a scope for us to explore further, but this is an attempt where the researchers has thought in a different direction to capture the intra-class variations and also between class similarity, right? So this is how information is captured for a particular subject, that's GIAT information or the GIAT features. And whenever you want to recognize such a person, so there is an instance, okay, where the feature number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are considered, but here there is nothing like an instance like bag 1, cloth 1, normal 2 or normal 3. We don't know in which instance that subject appears when we are recognizing or authenticating such a subject or a person in a real-time scenario. So we are just extracting the features D1, D2, theta, D3, D4 of one of the instances presented as a probe, and that is measured, and that will be compared with a knowledge base. Okay, now look at here, the D1 is 36.0183. okay, that is between this feature, right? Look at here, the D1 for this particular subject varies between 35.043 and 41.0122. So when you consider this feature, definitely it is a 36.0183 that lies between this. Then you can say when you compare this feature with this subject, then it is 1 because it is contained in this interval. Similarly, you consider the second one, it's also inside this interval, it's 1. And again you consider the next one, 0.981, it's inside the interval, and 8 inside the interval, and 10 again inside the interval, right? As far as this particular probe sequence is concerned, when you compare this is a reference, GIAT subject or GIAT feature vector in the database. So, and if you establish a matching between these two, a probe and a reference, then definitely this says that this particular test sample belongs to one of the GIAT, one of the person's GIAT in the database, and you can label it as a person 1, person 2, person 3, etc. But now the question is how accurate it is. So what is the true positive, right? So in which cases the system refuses or not able to recognize a person authentication, even if it is a genuine person, right? And sometimes there is a chance that the system may deny even though he is an authenticated user, right? So all such issues need to be addressed when we think of deploying it in a real-time scenario. But this is a study, right? So maybe one can think of exploring these at even at a large scale, and think of its feasibility in deploying it in a real-time situation, and we can think of a product as such, right? And before that, a lot of analysis need to be done, because any such deployment will involve cost, effort, and the time. So those things need to be studied, and we have to think of a prototype or a simulation, and then we have to study in all possible dimensions and also the parameters, and then we can think of deploying it, right? So this is just an example information, and you can just explore the literature, and you can find so many such attempts by many researchers in this direction, and there is a scope for you to explore in a similar direction if you are willing to work on GIAT biometric. And this is an example of a GIAT matching, what I already mentioned. I'm not getting into that too much of details because it may take more time. Okay, so you just try to understand this particular matching criteria, matching process. Okay, so if you have any doubts or confusions, and if at all you want to interact, so I will be available anytime, so you can interact with me, right? So by now I'm going to skip this because I've already explained to you how a probe sequence can be compared with a reference. Okay, and for that we have just built a mathematical model or an equation which does such a matching, and we have just called it as a symbolic similarity measure, and which is explored in a signature biometric and GIAT biometric, and also in many other biometric applications that you can explore the literature, and you can find out where and all these ideas have been explored successfully in a biometric application. So this is what is the claimed accuracy for a CASIA-B database, which I already discussed with you in earlier slides. And the author has claimed that for that database at identification rate at the first level, I mean the first label which is given to a probe sequence as an authenticated user, right? So when I consider the first rank, then for normal and carrying bag and other conditions, it has shown only 71% of accuracy, right? Even you can see at some cases it goes to 62.50. So still there is a scope for us to explore the technique so that we can enhance the accuracy, right? In some cases it shows 97%, but in some cases it's very low, that it is 62.50, right? So that indicates that there is a scope for us to explore further this technique. But when you take the rank 5, of course for the first two probe it shows 100%, but still there is a low accuracy of 66.66 for one of the covariates C2. And similarly, if I consider the rank 10, only the normal cases have shown 100%, but still you can see the accuracy is reduced, right? So for C2, it shows only 75% of accuracy. So this indicates that there's a scope for us to explore further, and we can do research, and we can think of the possible reasons why for this particular covariate or an instance there is a less accuracy, right? So all these things are very much needed whenever we are going to formulate a research problem on the topic like biometric, gate biometric, or similar such biometric applications or any other applications in any other domain, right? So with this, I'm just going to give you some information regarding a model-free approaches, that is a support vector regression for multi-view gate recognition based on local motion feature selection, that is appeared in CVPR 2010. And another is multiple views gate recognition using view transformation model based on optimized gate energy image. Okay, I already mentioned gate energy image, but here this author tries to optimize the gate energy image. So how they optimize gate energy image? What is the idea? So if you look at that, maybe even we can think in a different direction where a further optimization may be possible, or some of the limitations of this particular technique can be addressed. So that's how we are contributing with new idea to the field of biometric, and particularly a gate biometric. Okay, and similarly, cross view gate recognition using correlation strength appeared in BMVC conference, that is 2010, and view invariant discriminative projection for multi-view gate based human identification in 2013, right? So I've just considered some of the references which the other articles cited. Okay, and of course very recent articles are also there. I'm just sharing that information with you in coming slides. Okay, so here is an example of one such work, that is gate energy image, gate entropy image, gate flow image, and chrono gate image. Now you can see how gate is represented with sequence of images, right? And the most widely used is gate energy image. And of course the people have proposed and they tried, maybe they have not shown a good accuracy, right? And there are a lot of constraints on those techniques, so which we can explore, and further we can propose new ideas and new techniques so that we can overcome those limitations, and we can just show the research community that yes, this problem can be addressed in this direction, and other limitations and many such things can be studied and can be explored and reported. So with all this, there is one key concept, that is a gate cycle. Now of course I have been mentioning since beginning that there is a gate silhouette, and we need to consider the gate image information. But what exactly is needed while recognizing or authenticating a person or a subject with a gate biometric? So the very basic concept is a gate cycle. So a gate cycle here is shown as an example, and here from this silhouette to this silhouette, it is a stance and there is a swing. Here is the definition given: between where the same foot touches the ground for the first and the second time. Okay, and then for the purpose of normalization of silhouettes and computing gate templates such as gate energy image. So whenever you observe the person's manner of walking, definitely it is repeated, right? Okay, so you whenever you are walking, your walking style repeats actually, right? So we need to consider how many such sequences need to be considered, right? Where when you start walking, you will just consider a left leg, and you just by the time you put the left leg as a front and right leg as a back, and again it repeats. So we call it a gait cycle. So the number of such instances for a particular gait cycle varies from person to person. There's another very challenging issue need to be considered, right? If I consider a particular video of a person's walking, if at all I want to do the recognition process, and one important concept is a gait cycle. Okay, I need to detect the gate cycle with the video, because whenever we capture a video information at a distance, so we will get a continuous frames, but we need to identify a gate cycle in that video. And with that gate cycle, we need to identify the sequence of frames which contains this silotes or information, and those silotes need to be analyzed. Okay, and that gives you a useful information to authenticate a particular person, and that's what is called a gate cycle. And when we have done experimentation on various subjects, and even it is reported in the benchmark databases that it varies from person to person to a certain extent. Maybe for some people it is a 26 images, and for some it is 28, or for some it is 30. So because again, it all depends on the speed with which a particular subject walks. Okay, so that's how it's very much important for us to normalize that whenever we are thinking of deploying a gate biometric in a practical scenario, or even for the purpose of study. So we have to normalize, and that is a challenge. Okay, of course, the researchers have already proposed some ideas how to normalize it and how to make it possible, right? So this is just an example, that is a gate cycle. So you can get more information in the literature when you browse through what are the different techniques proposed by the researchers to identify accurately a gate cycle in a given video, and how that information is considered for subsequent analysis for a gate recognition application. So here is an example, gate energy image. Look at here at instance T1 and time T2 and time 3, etc. at time T. So that is a period of gate. Okay, so you'll be getting some 30 images or 28 images or 26 images within that gate period or a gate cycle. So all those images are spatially well aligned and temporally averaged gate frames within one gate cycle. So you detect a gate cycle with the input video information, and you consider that gate cycle and extract the frames and get the silotes out of it, and do some pre-processing like background subtraction and other stuffs, and then you are going to align those spatially silotes with the temporally, you can average with the temporal information, and that produces a gate energy image, and here is the mathematical equation for that. Okay, so with that, once you come out with a gate energy image, this solves the problem of unequal number of frames which you have extracted for a particular subject, because I already mentioned for a particular subject the number of images may vary. Okay, even sometimes, even if you allow a person to walk under different instances, like even normal in a different floor and with a backpack, with a something carrying conditions, the number of such images within a gate cycle may vary for the same person, right? So how can you overcome that? So here is one such technique proposed by one of the researchers. That's what is called gate energy image. They just average. When they average, it becomes a single gate energy image. But here they have mentioned that empirically 30 frames for a whole sequence of frames enough to cover a complete gate cycle. And this is empirically studied for whenever you have conducted an experiment for various databases. So they have empirically studied that 30 frames are sufficient enough to cover most of the information in a particular gate cycle. And this example gate energy image. So GEI, gate energy image, is a robust to the silote noise but may have high dimensionality. Now look at here, there is a trade-off. Okay, it is very robust to a silote noise, but it has high dimensionality. Okay, so that's how whenever you propose any such approach or algorithm or idea, so definitely it will come with some limitations and some merits. So that's what is called a trade-off. But we need to think of how can I overcome the limitation so that I can still make use of the merits of that algorithm, and I try to minimize the limitations or reduce the limitations as such. And here is an example of gate entropy image in a similar way, but you can just see and explore how this gate entropy image is created by using a Shannon entropy for each pixel in the silote images. That equation is given here. And those who are interested to work on this, you can just explore, and you can refer the paper by Bashir Tiang and Gong, gate recognition using gate entropy image It's a proceedings of Third International Conference on Imaging for a Crime Detection and Prevention. So that is published in the year 2009. Okay, so you can get more information regarding this particular work, right? And if you found it interesting and if there is a scope for you to explore it, then definitely you can think in the direction. And similarly, there is a gate flow image, and here's an example, and this contains the motion information of a human gait, and these are generated by determining the optical flow field from the binary silhouettes of each cycle. And again, the equations are written here in a mathematical form. You just analyze it, understand, and you can implement it. For more details, you can refer a concerned paper, and where we can understand the technical details of this work, and then you can think of identifying the scope for further exploring this technique if possible, for implementation, and also maybe you can just analyze its feasibility for a practical application as well. And here's an example of chronogate image where it considers the temporal information as well as the RGB color information. So they say that we encode temporal information in the silhouettes images with additional colors to generate a chronogate image. The goal of this chronogate image is to compress the silhouette images into a single image without losing too much temporal relationship between the images. So of course it works similar to a gate energy image, but they try to explore the other parameters like colors and other things. And this work has been appeared in the ECCV conference and also PAMI in the year 10 and 12, right? So the interested researchers can explore further, okay, a novel temporal template for gait recognition and also human identification using temporal information preserving a gait template. So this is the title of these articles proposed by the same author and appeared in top tier conferences like ECCV and PAMI. Okay, so you can just find out the merits of this approach and limitations of this approach, and then definitely many other parameters need to be studied, and its feasibility to deploy it in real-time application, right? So here is an example of a pipeline of a typical gate energy image based gate recognition method. Okay, so here I try to give you the major steps involved in such approaches, right? Because I already mentioned gate energy image, gate flow image, and chronogate image. So all those techniques works in a similar way, but they consider additional information and additional parameters, right? So if I consider any of these approaches, extract human silhouettes from video sequences, and now you can see in the first row you can capture the video sequences through any capturing device. So the raw sequences are considered, and through which you can detect the gait cycle and align and average the silhouettes along the temporal dimension to get a GI. That is, you are extracting the silhouettes and then you are going to average it, and with that you are going to perform a comparison. That's what, given a probe gate energy image and those in the gallery, mean the database, evaluate the similarities between each pair of a probe and a gallery images, right? Gate energy images. So this is the probe, means the test sample which you want to authenticate, and these are the gate energy images which are in the gallery, means in the database. You are performing a comparison operation and to identify what is the similarity between this probe and any of these gate energy images which are in the database, that is a reference images or gallery or model images and etc. Right? You can establish the similarity, and with that similarity you can find out to which such subject the probe is more similar. Accordingly you can label. So in this example, when you use this CNN technique, convolutional neural network, for performing such a comparison, so this shows that the S1 shows more similarity with this probe, then you can label that the given probe or a test subject is S1, right? Is same as S1. Okay, so that's what is the similarities. So it is symbolically presented, but when you are when you implement it, you will get more information regarding this, and you will be having in-depth knowledge about what are the parameters to be considered, how similarity is established, what are the challenges that you may have to face while establishing the similarity. So all such practical issues need to be taken into account, or you will experience all those things, and that's how a knowledge about such a process will be enhanced, and that knowledge will trigger us to think in a different direction. And that's how we can sometimes we can think of a new idea of matching, a new idea of representation, a new way of addressing the issues. All those things are actually the contributions a researcher can give to the field or to the particular subject. Okay, so that's how this shows that a comprehensive study on cross-view gate-based human identification with deep convolutional neural network, IEEE PAMI, in the year 2016. So you can just explore and you will find many more scopes and research avenues, and a lot of challenges and constraints which you can explore further at a larger scale. And that could be one of the very interesting topic of research for any research scholar who wish to carry out the research on this biometric, particularly the gate biometric. So with this, robustness of gate recognition system, which is one of the very important parameters when we think of a practical biometric application. So one of the biggest challenges is to disentangle the identity and unrelated factors. So subject related ones like walking speed, dressing and carrying conditions; device related ones, different frames rate and filming resolutions; environment related ones, illumination conditions and camera viewpoints. Among these, the change of viewpoints would be one of the most tricky factors. And those researchers who wish to work on gate biometric applications or gate biometric research, definitely there is a lot of scope for you to explore these issues like the walking speed, dressing and carrying conditions, and different frame rates and filming resolutions, and illumination conditions and camera viewpoints, right? You can just think of deploying or getting data in a real-time environment, right? The first thing is you can propose your idea or a framework or a methodology, and you can experiment with a benchmark database which is in a controlled environment, right? Let us assume that your algorithm produces say 95% of accuracy or 98% of accuracy, right? But when you consider a real-time database in a real environment, then definitely the proposed algorithm may not produce that much of accuracy, and because of these issues, right? So when you try to address these issues, then definitely your framework changes, your methodology changes, your approach changes. You may have to introduce new ideas into your model to address those issues, and that makes up a separate architecture which you can propose to handle a gate biometric in a real-time scenario, right? And that's what is the idea. So whoever wants to work on this, you need to consider all these issues, and with this, definitely there is a scope for any researcher to explore in this direction. So here is some example, Cassia B database, where cross-view examples in Cassia B database like gallery, identical view probes, cross-view probes with 54 degree, 90 degree, 126 degree, and 180 degree, and cross-view of walking condition probes like this. So the researcher, the findings of a particular research says that the performance of an approach ignoring cross-view variations would drop drastically when the viewpoint changes. And this is what is the observation made by one of the researchers in one of the approach. Okay, and particularly on the database Cassia B database. So because the appearance of subjects can substantially alter, leading to intra-class variations larger than intra-class variation. And this is what is the challenge we need to address whenever we think of deploying such a system in a practical scenario with a considerable population size. Okay, so there is a scope. So this what is the research observations in one of the research work, right? So here is an example, feature learning for a gate recognition. As I already mentioned, model based approach and model free approach. And again, in model free, many advanced techniques have been explored for analysis considering many parameters. So traditional learning pipeline, where we capture images and we come out with the profiles, and an example gate energy images. Then we apply a learning algorithm. Then we can do we design a classifier, and then we authenticate a subject, or we assign a human ID. That's what is authentication of a person through gate. So on the other end, the deep learning pipeline reduces some of the steps, and it integrates all those steps into the architecture itself. So here is the image, the profile. Okay, so then you can consider a gate energy image. So here, learning and recognition is inbuilt into the architecture. That is a convolutional neural network, and this will take care of these two major tasks, and it recognizes the human ID, or it recognizes a person and assigns a human ID. So that's how it is difficult to manually design view invariant feature representation for gate recognition. And that is what is the research findings by many researchers who have made an attempt in this direction. And a solution to that is a advanced technology, right? That's what is called a deep learning techniques or architecture. So with this, this what is the observation. Although the issue denotes a relatively long time challenge, most of the techniques developed to handle the problem present several drawbacks related to feature extraction and low classification rates, among other issues as well. So definitely it's very difficult to identify the best features, right? So handcrafted features are not that robust. It may works for one particular database, and it may not work for some other database, and it may work for a controlled environment, may not work in a real environment, and there are many other issues, and it's very difficult for a researcher to identify the right features. Okay, you have to study all possible features, and empirically you have to extract the features, right? So it's very tedious and time consuming task, and that's what is one of the major research observations from the community of research from the past few years who worked on gate recognition applications. So in order to address this issue, very recently, deep learning based approaches have been proposed, and they are as robust as possible, or as a robust set of tools to deal with virtually any image and computer vision related problem, providing paramount results for a gate recognition as well. Because very recently, when we observed the recent trends, okay, particularly in the field of machine learning and artificial intelligence, everybody speaks about the deep learning architecture, right? The deep learning architecture, the convolutional neural networks and recurrent neural networks, and different kernels, okay, and different step functions, right? So everything is included as a compact representation in a particular architecture, where that entire architecture is designed in such a way that it will automatically extract the features and identify which are the best features for this particular task. Having shown different training examples, the system can automatically identify the best features out of it, and each and every layer in the architecture will contribute something and try to address certain issues, and finally we get a satisfactory result out of that architecture. It has already been proved, right? So many of you have worked on many such deep learning architectures like VGG16 architecture, MobileNet, InceptionNet, okay, and very recently YOLO algorithm has gained a lot of popularity and attention, and different versions of YOLO algorithms are released, like YOLO v3, YOLO v5, YOLO v7, right? So they're all quite very interesting architectures. So what we need to understand here is there is no longer a scope for handcrafted features, but however, we need to understand the cost of such advanced deep learning architecture. But we need to see what's our problem, and what are the issues to be addressed, and what are the parameters to be considered, and what is the involvement of the infrastructure and cost, and whether such a system can be practically deployed and which can address the problem which we wanted to solve. So all these parameters need to be considered, and then we can decide whether we can go with a simple traditional approach, or we can go with a deep learning models, right? So definitely both approaches have advantages as well as some limitations, because many times we don't have a sufficient training samples, and when we have less number of samples, your deep learning architecture may fail. Even you cannot expect even a accuracy of 60% or 70% in many cases, because any deep learning architecture, if at all has to extract the features, it requires a lot of training samples, right? So thousands of training samples are needed to train a deep learning architectures. Okay, so many a time you may not find such millions of samples for training. In that case, you cannot think of deploying such a system practically. Then definitely we can think of a traditional approach, right? That's what I say. So depending upon your problem, depending upon the other parameters, right, and the feasibility, we can think of proposing a traditional approach, or we can think of a deep learning architecture. And with this, we can try to address some of the challenging issues associated with the GATE biometric, and we can just think of coming out with a practical solution which can be deployed to address the practical scenario. So with this observation, I just wanted to give you some information regarding the deep learning based gait recognition approaches organized by type of neural network, right? So here in the first column, I have mentioned the references. I have also noted here the article which I have referred for this particular information. This is gait recognition based on deep learning, a survey. And this is appeared in ACM Computing Survey, volume 55, number 2, article 34. Publication is January 2022, right? So just 11 months back, this paper was published and appeared in this ACM article. It's a very top journal, right, or a publisher. So this article lists all the references where we have mentioned here, like 50 to 86, and anyhow, I can share this material with the organizers, and they will share with the audience and the participants, and you can just go through if you found it interesting and if at all you want to work on this. So here is the technique: convolutional neural network, CNN. The task is feature extraction from images or frames of a video. Autoencoder works by compressing and decompressing features from the input, and the capsule network improve the semantic organization of outputs from a convolutional neural network. Deep belief networks encode features and patterns into compressed representations. And generative adversarial networks, a training method that relies on the differentiation of an original input and a generate counterpart from a model such as a CNN. And recurrent neural networks comprise both GRUs and LSTM, which are composed with several gates to control the flow of information and are employed to deal with temporal information. So these are the very recent architecture which comes under deep learning approach, right? So definitely to understand all these architectures, you have to get into the complete architecture. You have to slice from first layer to till last layer. What are all the things and what are all the operations that are performed in each and every layer? And if we are able to understand all such practical and implementation details and issues, then we can understand the limitations of such a model, and there is a chance and a scope for us to come out with a new idea. But many times what we do is we take an architecture which is already proposed by some other researcher, and we take the architecture as it is, and we have a problem to be solved, and we try that architecture for the problem. And of course, that architecture may produce a satisfactory result, and then we claim that yes, this problem has been solved by using this architecture, and we write an article and we publish it, right? So that's not actually, according to my knowledge, is a research. What is very much important is coming out with such an architecture which best suits for your problem, the way you think in a different dimension, right? Even it could be a gait biometric, or it could be a fingerprint biometric, or even a fingerprint biometric for a child, or a face biometric for a child, right? So all such tasks are very novel, need to be addressed, which are not yet addressed. A lot of scopes are there, a lot of challenges are there. If at all you want to think of addressing those problems, by exploring deep learning architecture, then definitely it is not that you can use an existing deep learning architecture, you can use the images and you can try. But what is very much important is whether that architecture best solves your problem, and whether all of those layers which are designed in that architecture is very much needed for your problem. Because definitely those layers may not be needed, right? You can introduce some new layers if needed, or you can take out some of the layers which are not important, right? So that's how, if you understand in depth all these architectures, maybe a capsule network or a deep belief networks or adversarial networks, any such ideas, right? So definitely it demands more of your time and little bit of mathematical background and knowledge to understand. Okay, you have to segment the entire architecture, try to understand each and every operation and each and every layer, how exactly it does. And if we are able to get such level of detail with any of these architecture, then definitely we'll be able to understand whether this architecture can solve my problem, or can I think of a new architecture, or can I think of hybridizing many such architectures which have the merits and we can reduce the limitations, so put together that can solve my problem. So that's where we have to think of research in this direction, right, in a deep learning or new approach for machine learning applications. So this is just for information. And of course, even in this paper, because it's survey paper, they have not mentioned the technical details of how these methods works. And definitely each of these articles, if at all we want to understand to the depth, it requires more effort and time. Okay, but it is worth exploring these networks because they are state of the art, and definitely you can find out whether any of these ideas can be hybridized, can be modified, which can best solve your problem. So that's what is my understanding when I go through this paper and these advanced deep learning based gate recognition approaches. So here is a simple visualization regarding this gate acquisition, data pre-processing through deep learning models, and the decision. So you can look at here an example, a symbolic representation in the sense how we can symbolically present deep learning architecture. That's all. So, but when it comes to the traditional technique, it's a gate acquisition, pre-processing, feature extraction, classification, and the decision. So here, the pre-processing step, feature extraction step, the classification step, all these modules are integrated into this architecture, right? So give gate information, gate acquisition, and use the architecture, and you will get a decision, right? So that's how the schematic diagrams from deep learning top and standard bottom gate recognition pipelines are presented here in this example figure. As the image suggests, deep learning approaches abstract the steps concerning data pre-processing, feature extraction, and classification in a single architecture. So many a times the segmentation may not be needed whenever you are doing an image recognition task, right? And definitely that the deep architecture may extract some important features by automatically eliminating the background, so you need not worry about the segmentation. But we have to try to what extent it is work or it works, and what is the feasibility, right? Unless we confirm that, so we cannot think in a different direction, right? So all these things are the possible solutions, are the issues to be taken into account whenever we are trying to use a deep learning models for any of our image processing, machine learning, and pattern recognition kind of applications, right? So here is an example, deep learning based gate recognition approaches. Here in the first column, there's a reference. In the second column, year 2016 up to 2019, the CNN model, CNN plus giant Bayesian, CNN plus Siamese networks, CNN plus nearest neighbor, autoencoders plus PCA, CNN plus LSTM, GAN, DBN, capsule, CNN, and then autoencoders plus LSTN, right? You can look at here the different models. Even you can think of hybridizing many other models which is feasible and which can best solve your problem, right? So that's how we have to think in this direction. And then is input type, gate energy image, cross view, sensors, optical flow, cross view, optical flow, gate energy image, accelerometer and gyroscope, PEI, sensors, LBC. So you can just look at here the different input information depending upon the scenario and the capturing media, right, and devices and etc. And accordingly, the data set name is also given. OU ISIR database, Cassia B, and term guide and Cassia B, etc. I mean, what are all the data sets they have considered to study their model and to report the results. But when you look at the results, you see, so almost more than 90%. Okay, see 94.6, 90.8, 97.6, etc. Look at here, 99.8 identification rate, particularly for CNN plus nearest neighbor, optical flow, input type, and for the database like this, right? 99.75, right? For CNN plus LSTM, accelerometer and gyroscope and etc. That is accuracy. And of course, here for a capsule network, LBC and MMF, and for this database, it is 74.4%. It doesn't mean that all the issues have been addressed in this work, right? Because they have worked on these data sets, and you should understand the under what setup the database has been created and what are the limitations or constraints, right? Maybe in terms of input type, in terms of data set, and maybe when you think of deploying that in a real-time environment, all of these models which have which have shown this much of accuracy definitely might have been reduced to even 60% or a 50%, no surprise. Then definitely you can just understand there is a scope, right? This is only the claim by the researchers who have worked in this direction, but it doesn't mean that the research ends up here only, because the results says that almost 94%, 97% or 99%. So definitely you have to think of the input type and whether it is feasible for a real practical application which you just think of deploying, and also the databases which are created in an environment, right? So when you change the input type on the database, the accuracy what has been proposed here 99.8 may be reduced to 66.8, even if you apply the same model CNN plus nearest neighbor, right? So that's where there is a scope. These are only the results published in the articles, but it doesn't mean that we don't have a scope. Definitely we have a scope, but what is very much important is we need to understand the scenario, the constraints, the parameters, and many other issues, right? Maybe the cost and many things as such, and accordingly there is a scope for you to explore further, and you can realize it and you can understand in a practical scenario. And many more I have just reported here. You please go through it. Anyhow, the material will be shared with you, and even if you want, I can just share these research articles with you, and you can just go through and get more information regarding this. And just wanted to share these details. Look at here, very recently 2021 capsule sensors and databases, they have considered several, and they have claimed 99.69, right? It doesn't mean that there is no scope to work, because of course the capsule network is the model, the input type is the sensors, and they have not mentioned which database they have considered. If you change the input type on the database, the same capsule network may produce you even less than 60%. So there is a scope. Please think in the direction. Okay, so with this, the next few slides will just give you some general information regarding how the databases have been created. Okay, in case if you just think of coming out with such databases for your problem, so definitely you can have a setup in real-time scenario. You can capture the database, and you do pre-processing, you standardize the database, and you can publish the database, where the contemporary researchers who work in a similar application in the domain can make use of the database and they can report the results. Okay, so that's how the research grows and the community grows. So this is an example, frames from Cassia B dataset. Each image corresponds to one of the 11 comprised angles. Okay, you can look at here. So the angle varies, front view, and again the view changes, side view, etc. Almost, right, zero angle and etc. Right? So you can see here. So the different angles. So you need to capture the images in a different views, and then you have to study by proposing some approach. Then you can validate the feasibility of such a approach. And here is an example from CASIA B database. One can notice the change in the clothes, personal objects like backpacks and etc. See, coat, bag, bag, carrying bag, and also normal walking style. So for the same person, so you may have to consider all these kind of covariates whenever you want to study such an application. And here is another example data set. That is example from CASIA C data set. The images were obtained through an infrared camera at night and with variations in a manner of walking. Suppose if at all you want to deploy a GIAT biometric based security surveillance in a restricted area which works in night, at night, so then definitely your regular sensors or your regular camera or input type may not be feasible. Then you have to think of infrared camera. So here's an example, right? So we need to identify what is the purpose and which best suits that, right? That's what is the idea. And here is another example where there is a camera. The person walks on a surface, that is a foot pressure measurement plate, and that information is captured in a foot scan device where that information is recorded here. And again, this information will be taken into account to study the person's gate information, and through which the identification can be done, particularly in security places, right? So that's how. Example from CASIA D dataset. The images illustrate the images acquisition process synchronously with the footsteps data. So all these things are the practical examples how one can think of coming out with a model or a practical approach to identify a person or authenticate a person, particularly considering a gate as a biometric. Okay, this is just an example. And here is another example of a multi-view data set. The image presents a people walking in different directions from multi points of view. So look at here, right? So this also need to be taken into account, because many times we see CC camera footages, right? Maybe in in almost all campuses and buildings there will be a CC camera. And is it possible for us to study the videos recorded in a CC camera and we can able to identify a person if that person has already been enrolled, where that information is available in the database, or we can suspect whether this is a person who is authenticated to enter that particular restricted area or is a stranger, right? For an early warning. So all such are very interesting and practical requirements today, because wherever we go, we will see CC cameras, right? And there is a surveillance. Many times you might have seen that you are under surveillance. Be careful. So that's how. So definitely there is a scope for us to explore further all these ideas, and we can find a useful applications in our day-to-day activities. So with this information, now the next few slides will give you a little more information regarding the various data sets, like HID human data set, that's a CASIA, University of South Florida USF data set, and KU4D database, GATE database, that is Kaishu University 4D GATE database, that is a static outdoor, static indoor, active outdoor, active indoor. So they have classified the databases based on the environment. That's what representation of the dataset development environment. So this definitely indicates that all these databases are created under certain controlled environment, and because of that the results what they have reported is 95%, 98%, and 99%. That means they do have some limitations, some constraints, some issues to be addressed. When you try to remove any of these constraints, then definitely the accuracy falls down. There is a scope for you to introduce something new or a new framework which addresses that particular issue or that particular constraint. So you can just see the databases are classified according to this development environment. This for your information, which is available in the paper, a survey paper, what I already mentioned. Another one is RGB and thermal data sets, that is data spectrum representation of the data sets. So all these data bases or data sets which are listed here, they are using RGB spectrum, that is CMU MOBO dataset, thumb gate dataset, HID UMD dataset, Cassia dataset, and USF dataset, right? WhoGate dataset, and KU4D dataset. So all these are using RGB spectrum, whereas thumb gate dataset, Cassia, and other datasets which are maybe the various versions of the datasets, they are using a thermal spectrum as well. Okay, so even the datasets are classified accordingly. So this gives you the information regarding what is the input type and what types of devices which are used to capture the video information, which is further analyzed for gate, okay, through which we can do a recognition or authentication or verification, right? So this what is the data spectrum representation of the data sets. So with this, there are a few critical points about video based models and databases that are worth highlighting. Okay, so the researchers, having studied the traditional approaches and deep learning approaches, and definitely that in today's surveillance based applications, the video data need to be analyzed. So whenever we are considering video based models for analysis, so here are some of the critical points which are worth highlighting. The first thing is the presented data sets do not introduce more than one person per video, either for training or validation purpose. So this is what we need to understand. So this is where there is a scope for you to explore further by removing that particular constraints or by incorporating more and more information into the database. The environments in which they were recorded are fully controlled. Look at here, there is another constraint. Okay, they are fully controlled. Despite the variation of angles in some sets, it is possible to notice no variation of subjects or even of colors in the background. This is another added limitations of the data sets or the models they are proposed. So with all this observation, what we can understand here is still it is in a preliminary stage. Still we are not able to explore this for practical applications because of a lot of challenges, right? But of course, with all these studies and analysis, maybe in near future we can come out with solutions where we can definitely think of deploying all these things in a practical scenario with affordable cost infrastructure because of advanced technology. So that's what is the point. So another one is other videos were recorded with the people walking on electric treadmills, denoting even greater control of the movements and the environment. So this is another constraint or a controlled environment where the data sets are created or experiments are conducted, results are reported. Okay, so these information, okay, and these critical points will definitely motivate us to think of research in this direction, right? And definitely we can explore and find out the possible scope and the challenges, and accordingly one can formulate a problem, a research problem, and can be addressed. So with this, to sum up, some of the challenges here are discriminating features not well understood. So this is what is the challenge. So whenever you analyze a gait cycle of a person, so for a model based approaches, understanding the discriminating features is not very clear, or the discriminating features are not well understood by any of the approaches which are proposed in the literature. There is a style of walking and human profile and coordinated movement of limbs and torso and speed of walking. Apart from this, high degree of freedom, that is a variation of movement of subjects, because a person can move in any direction, forward, backward, and in any angle, right? So high degree of freedom, and because of that orientation of torso, carrying condition, everything will change, and that altogether adds more complexity to the data. So view independent, frontal parallel, back view, and presence of multiple subjects and occlusion, So if you just explore it, there are a lot of challenges, a lot of issues. So definitely it's worth exploring for any researchers who is interested in this gate biometric research. Okay. So in addition to this, many more multi-view depth images, partial gate cycle to derive view independent representation, fusion of multiple view information, reconstruction of a complete gate cycle, and to establish correspondences using partial gate in a different view, to maintain and update gallery images, occlusion, presence of multiple persons. So here I have just mentioned already. So put it in a simple way, these are some of the observed challenges, but when you carefully observe a practical scenario, there could be many more as such. So all these things adds up a very good topic for a research, right? And a lot of scope, but what we need is more information regarding these the field and approaches which are already proposed and state of the art. Okay, so definitely it demands more of your effort and the time, knowledge to understand to the depth, to come out with a very interesting and feasible and problem which can be addressed within a stipulated time of 4 years or 5 years for a research scholar. But of course the research will continue, right, even after 20 years, because even after 20 years we left with many more challenges. Okay, so the challenges keeps on adding depending upon the requirement. Okay, the requirement keeps on changes, the challenges issues are keeps on adding. Whatever the technology you have proposed today may become obsolete after a few years, right? Because earlier every one of us were working on traditional approaches to machine learning, but now today we found that because of today's requirement they all have become obsolete. Now the people are thinking a new direction, right? So maybe in future new techniques may come and they address some issues, and at the time some more issues may added up to the problem itself, and that's how the research is continuous. It's a continuous process. So with this I just conclude with a summary, some of the points. In a gate recognition, rate of recognition will be good when both training and testing are in same view, but if there is a change in training and testing view, recognition rate drops. This issue is to be addressed, that is view independent in training and testing. So definitely there is a challenge. That's not that simple, right? So a lot of images are needed, a lot of large scale databases are needed, and different scenarios need to be considered, and altogether you have to come out with a new model which can address this particular issue, right? So the rate of recognition is good for normal walking, but recognition rate drops when different covariants such as holding an object, carrying a backpack, different clothes, etc. are given as a probe. More attempts must be made to improve the accuracy of gait recognition invariant to covariates, so that gait recognition techniques can be applied to real application. Is another challenge. And capturing gait information from frontal view is very difficult for gait recognition, because you are going to lose most of the information, right? So whenever you observe a person who is moving and in a same angle of your view, so in a frontal view, then you are going to miss most of the information, because the movement of leg, the stride information, and torso information, so all such information is missing. Then how you are going to capture the features which can distinguish one person from another person, right? So that's where the information here. So capturing gait information from frontal view is very difficult for a gait recognition. Some novel methods must be made attempted to focus good accuracy in gait recognition for a frontal view. The recent developments in gait research indicate that gait technologies still need to mature, and that limited practical application should be expected in the immediate future. Now you can see with this statement we understand that still we do not have a practical a gait for a practical applications. So they are telling that in near future or immediate future, with advancement of what all the technologies what we have just reviewed, maybe studied and integrated in order to come out with a practical applications in immediate future. At present, there is a potential for initial deployment of GATE for recognition in conjunction with other biometrics. Okay, so right now you can use GATE as a additional biometric trait for early warnings in a surveillance application in a restricted areas, okay, highly secured places, where as an early warning you can give, you can consider GATE as a biometric, and later you can use additional biometrics for the subsequent recognition, authentication, verification, or many such kind of applications or such kind of tasks. So future advances in GATE analysis and recognition are expected to result in wide deployment of GATE technologies, not only in surveillance, but in many other applications as well. But today, the people are targeting only the surveillance applications, but definitely GATE has its potential application in medical field as well, right? If you just want to know that, you just browse through that the GATE has been explored and exploited even for medical applications, right? For example, if a person has undergone a surgery, maybe because of accidents or maybe because of other reasons, and how can you come out with a normal walking style which you had before you met with an accident, right? Or a person met with an accident. Okay, so that's how even many times some people may may be affected by some illness, maybe related to the nerves or a bone or something like that. And how can a doctor can assess that this person is 100% cured, right? And has overcome from that illness or from the disease. So definitely the GATE plays a significant role in that, so that the manner in which the person walks before and after is same. So that's how. So not only that, many other possibilities are there even in a medical domain as well. But today the people are trying to address the application related to surveillance, okay, and a biometric, but it has potential in many other applications as well that we can explore, and you can choose a particular domain based on your interest and also the feasibility. So with this, here are some of the references which I just used within a short period of time to prepare this material. Okay, so of course you can find many other articles. Okay, so you can just explore, but here I have just mentioned a few of the papers which I could just go through and prepare this material for presentation today. I acknowledge all these authors and also the websites and also the publishers who made this data available for us to study and to share our knowledge on GATE biometric, right? So human identification at a distance via GATE recognition, Liang Wang, Center for Research on Intelligent Perception and Computing, National Lab of Pattern Recognition, Institute of Automation, Chinese Academy of Sciences. And this is the paper which I referred, and most of the information is covered from this paper. So I acknowledge the effort done by this particular author, Liang Wang, under the title Human Identification at a Distance via GATE Recognition. The other is Nicholas Bogoris and G.V. Chi, Human Gait Recognition based on matching of body components. That's a pattern recognition way back in 2007. And Han Banu, individual recognition using gait energy image, IEEE, and again way back in 2016, appeared in Transaction and Pattern Analysis and Machine Intelligence. And Sudeep Sarkar, Jonathan Phillips, Liu, and many more. That is the Human ID Gate Challenge Problem, Datasets, Performance and Analysis. That is IEEE Transaction, Pattern Analysis and Machine Intelligence in the year 2005. Okay, so and many more very top ranked journals like IEEE Pattern Analysis, that is Silhouette Analysis Based Gait Recognition for Human Identification, IEEE Transactions, Pattern Analysis and Material Intelligence, and Ghosh and Debos Betterjee, and Human Identification by Using Corner Points, International Journal of Graphics and Signal Processing, and many more, right? Okay, so there are many more references you can just find out, and definitely there is a lot of scope, and any researcher can think in this direction, and a lot of efforts are needed to come out with a real-time GATE database, and also analyzing the state-of-the-art techniques to understand the limitations of those techniques for the database which you have created in a real-time environment with certain constraints, of course, and then proposing a new model which can solve that problem for your application, right? So that's how definitely you can think of a lot of opportunities and avenues and the scope to explore this idea for any surveillance or other medical applications. So with these points in conclusion, I'm just winding up my presentation. As you just mentioned, it's 9 o'clock. I try to cover within the stipulated time of 120 minutes of my presentation and the remaining 30 minutes for interaction. And I just thank the organizers, Bharati Madam and her colleagues in the Department of MCA, Edge College of Engineering, for having invited me and given this opportunity to share my little knowledge on GIAT biometric with you all today. I hope that I have done my little justice on this topic to take you all along the corridor of GIAT biometric. And I hope that some of the challenges and issues which I just spoke about based on the literature will definitely motivate you people to think of a research problem in this direction if at all you still wanted to search your research problem for your PhD degree, right? So with these acknowledgements and words, I even thank my, at this point of time, my supervisor, because I found that he just joined my presentation. So really, I thank my supervisor because of him, I could understand the research and the culture, and I'm confident in speaking on the topic of my interest and my domain, right? I even acknowledge my supervisor and a mentor, Professor D.S. Guru sir, who has given such a confidence to me during my research days. And because of his efforts and his guidance and support today, I'm able to speak before you confidently. At the same time, I acknowledge the all my research scholars who worked under my supervision till now, and also, of course, many more are working. And I acknowledge the ideas given by my earlier research scholars and their efforts and knowledge which they used to interact with me enabled me to gain more knowledge, which helped me to speak confidently before you, right? So with these words, I thank each and everyone. Now this session is open for interaction. Okay, so I am just going to hide the sharing so that I can take up any questions or any interactions with you. Madam.
Okay. Yes, sir. So thank you very much, sir. So before I thank again, I want the participants to interact. Any questions, please, participants. So you can stop sharing also, sir.
Yes, madam. Yes.
Yes. Any questions, participants? Okay. If there are no questions, I would like to, extend my. So, Guru sir, you want to talk something? Yes, sir. Please, sir. Please.
Sir.
Guru sir, please.
Sir, please.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So at the outset, I congratulate the speaker. Wonderful coverage.
Thank you, sir.
That you have given us a very good evening dosage. Okay. So I joined in the beginning itself, but I think Bharti madam was introducing you at that time. I joined.
Yes, sir. I observed it, and you stayed for all the time. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
And Shekhar sir was also there in between for quite a long time too. Yes, sir.
I did not observe Shekhar sir. I observed Guru sir.
I joined in the beginning itself, and I'm sitting through completely eagerly waiting for certain information which perhaps I wanted specifically because you are the right man who worked on gate recognition and have some rich experience in modeling it up, and he had looked at the literature because I have not seen that gate literature specifically in recent days, right? And because I had assigned one interesting problem to one of my current PhD student who is supposed to work on face recognition, which is looking for a deployable solution in a real time, like the Shiv Prasad is
Yes, sir.
put on recognition of faces, and so that we can monitor and come out with some statistics related to when does a person enter into office and when does he go out of office, and especially in making attendance system possible in a real-time environment. So specifically, we want to come out with a solution which works on a single camera. I mean, a face is clearly visible when person enters into an environment, but while going out of the environment, right, while exiting, the face is not visible. But
Yes.
the only way is to look at his gait, the style with which he walks out. Can that be, predictable based on the way in which the style with which he enters? I mean, I want to capture the gait of front view, but predicting the gait of a back view. So it's nothing like conventional gait recognition. The reason is in conventional modeling of gait recognition is we have set of training examples, and then we have test sample, right? But here, in a general scenario, if JCE, SJCE college gate as a camera, a person like myself will enter. While entering, it has to learn my gait, looking at me from front side. Then, while myself take exit in the evening, it has to recognize that Dr. Guru is now going out of the campus. And Guru may visit only once in a year or only once in 5 years. I mean, whoever visits perhaps should be recognized and labeled as unknown 1, unknown 2 based on the faces. And while walking out, the system should be able to say that the guest who visited our campus today has gone out and nobody is inside. Suppose in my department, I have a well secured gate, a main gate. So in case today there are about 10,000 people entered into my department from morning to evening, there must have been 10,000 people walked out of the department by evening so that I can lock my department. It's not only a head count, it's also that the same person has walked out. So face recognition is one which can be used for attendance making of only known people, but gait recognition based on the back view, but knowing the front view. The back view is not given for training, but front view is given. So can we extrapolate that? I was eagerly looking for if any such content in your lecture indeed. And finally, in the last slide, you just touched upon that, deploying gait recognition based on front view is really tough. And you explained why it is tough, because you will be missing most of the interesting information on walking style and so on, right? So perhaps for the budding technocrats, there are many interesting avenues when you think of this AI-enabled solutions for deployable environment. So quite interesting coverage, Dr. Nagendraswamy. I
Thank you, sir.
really feel happy listening through, right? 2 hours. I never felt that, we really have spent 2 hours. So
Thank
we
you.
did
Thank
not
you, sir.
notice that 120 minutes went on, right? Wonderful presentation, good content coverage. Perhaps, as I mentioned, you had given a wonderful dosage during this winter season for the people to be very hot always, right? Okay,
Thank
to
you, sir.
keep them very hot always. So thanks to Dr. Bharati for having invited.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Sir,
Thank you.
it was really indeed a very pleasure to have you in our session and inspire the young budding, participants over here to extrapolate the problem or extrapolate the contents what HSN sir has discussed till now. We wholeheartedly thank you both for attending this session and delivering your thoughts. And it is always inspiring and motivation to all of us from the Department of Science and Computer Science from University of Mysore, because that is the main route where the research has evolved across South India, to tell frankly, especially in Mysore region and so on.
That's true, but still before that, Professor Nagbhushan, who is responsible, is from SJ College only.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Though the STEM is in Department of Studies in Computer Science, but the root was in SJ College.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, if so there is so many wishes coming in the chat box. All of them are congratulating and saying thanks one after the other. I wholeheartedly thank HSN sir for his well-versed delivery of the talk. So it was not only the content, or it was not only the components that it helped us, but you also spoke about what are the research techniques that one has to follow. You actually, it is not the corridor that you took up, sir. You took up us with the entire building of the GATE technology, because you started from 2004-5 to almost deep architecture from 2021 till there you took up. And you spoke about the basic image processing to involvement of fuzzy logic in that, then coming up with the what energy gate energy image, and you spoke so exhibitly about the data set and all. It was indeed a very good talk today, sir. We the organizers from the JSA Science and Technology University wholeheartedly thank for your acceptance and presenting the talk. And we are eager to hear from Dr. Guru sir in the next week in person. Yes,
I think it's a physical discussion.
yes, sir. Physical, sir. Next Tuesday we'll be fortunate to listen to you, sir.
Yes, yes. So we are also interested to attend Guru sir's session offline. Please remind me, madam.
Yeah, sure, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
If participants has no question, let's wind up. Thank you one and all for your attending this session, and thanks the speakers and Guru sir for all this. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am,
Yes,
there
ma'am.
is a question from a participant. Rashmi, ma'am, you can take.
Please, please.
Yeah, actually, it's not a question. I am very grateful to be in this workshop as a participant, because HSN sir is my lecturer when I was doing my MTech in MOU, Mysore University, and he taught me fuzzy logic itself. After his lecturing and his subject, I never gone, no, I didn't find anyone such a guide to me who can teach that fuzzy logic and all. Still today, I can remember on the board he used to draw everything and he used to give the real world analogy. And now I would like to thank organizers Bhati ma'am and one more madam for giving me one more opportunity to listen my lecturer's lecturing. And thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
And from entire session, I was like listening only. And thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
CK Rupa madam is there. Yes, madam. Rupa madam, please go on.
Good evening, ma'am. Guru sir, good evening, sir. Rupa from SAC, sir.
Oh, good evening. Good evening. How are you doing?
Fine, sir. Thank you, sir. HSN, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, madam.
Yeah. Sir, just a thought was like, how about straight using in the protest and all, sir? Can it be used there for identifying the crimes while the protest is going on? Public protest.
Madam, public?
Protesting rally will be going on, some crimes will be
Then
happening.
you want to identify some criminals if there are mixed up along.
Criminals. Yeah, criminals.
Yes. You can go with a kind of a search followed by a gate recognition. So you can think of multi-stage deep architecture where you have some deep detectors like YOLO and others, and then parallelly you feed into a different gate recognition models and see that the models were trained with such criminal styles. So you can potentially identify but not accurately identify.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
Because the environment itself is very challenging.
It's a kind of cluttered environment, but you can identify who are all such probable candidates, potentials, but you can later on think of going with a rigorous match to confirm it.
Oh,
It is
yes.
at least you must have two-stage architecture to follow. That's a good application to explore further. I mean, during protesting, some people may be intentionally involved in it so that they want to disrupt, right? And they are already known for such criminal activities. If such gates are really available in the database, we can give it a try and think of multi-stage architecture for it. A wonderful application, madam.
Oh, thank you. I'll
Yes.
look at. Sir, actually, I had one more question with regarding, as sir said, this can be used in medical domain also. But if I ask some question on medical domain, Guru sir will always say, "Okay, your husband is doctor, so you always have the question in that field." So I thought
No,
I'll ask
actually,
you.
sorry to intervene. Actually, there are some techniques followed by the occupational therapists, sir. Especially, as sir said, one who has met with the accident, they have a regular poster and procedure to identify the gate. So they have come up with a technology where they have to do the training or do the therapy until they reach into the specific poster or the gate. Actually, the research is going on in medical field regarding this.
Beyond that, you can think of extending it to a forest environment of notifying if some animals are met with some accident where there will be a change in style of their walking, so that animals can be taken care, right?
Correct.
These are all wonderful.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I am so happy that so many ideas are evolving even at 9:25 in the night. So that was the true inspiration from two gurus to technical experts from Mysore.
Hope that my lecture will not be in the night.
No, sir, it's in the day.
Physical lecture will not be.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Huh?
Okay.
Good night to all.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If
Thank you
there
very
are
much,
no
sir.
questions, again, I wholeheartedly thank both, Dr. Guru sir and HSN sir for the wonderful session. Thank you all the participants. Good night once again to all of you. Shall meet tomorrow again exactly at 6:50. Tomorrow we'll have two experts, Dr. Sana Gowda and Dr. Honne Gowda sir, who will be talking on research methodology and funding opportunities in technical research. Thank you, one and all. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. Thank you, madam. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
sir.